Follow the trend, tend to benefit while avoiding harm. Hello everyone, this is Mr. D. Today I want to introduce how to analyze the three transmissions. The three transmissions are the first transmission, the middle transmission, and the last transmission. That is the cause, the process, and the result. The three transmissions reflect the law of the development and change of things. That is, whether things are going in a favorable direction or not. The first transmission has two names. The first transmission, the origin and use. The origin and use is the root of thing, the clue of the thing, the beginning of the thing. If the selection of the first transmission is auspicious, its state is vigorous or powerful, and it is not damaged, it means that things are auspicious and smooth at least at the beginning stage. If the selection of the first transmission is ominous, its state is weak and dead, and it is damaged, it means that things are ominous and not smooth at the beginning stage. Whether the first transmission is damaged depends on the relationship between the first transmission and its earth plate, its relationship with its celestial, its relationship with the four lessons, and its relationship with the symbol under the first lesson. If the first transmission is the fourth lesson, then things must have happened very suddenly. If the first transmission restricts the symbol above the first lesson or the symbol below the first lesson, then things must have a lot of troubles and blockers. If the first transmission is restricted by its celestial and also restricted by its earth plate, it means that someone is involuntarily and forced to do something. If the first transmission restricts its celestial, it also restricts its earth plate, which means blocking and intolerable. Sometimes we can judge the outcome of things according to the first transmission, but in most cases, whether things are good or bad depends on the overall momentum of each course. If the first transmission is derived from the above symbol restricting the lower symbol, things come from outside. It is beneficial to take the initiative to attack. It is beneficial to man, and it is beneficial to people of high status. If the first transmission is derived from the low symbol restricting the above symbol, things start from the inside, which is good for passives, good for women, and good for people of low status. If the earth plate of the first transmission is its grow, then things will be smooth. If the earth plate of the first transmission is its birth or death, then things are likely to fail. If the first transmission is birth of the symbol below the first lesson, then things are likely to fail. If the earth plate of the first transmission is the extinction of the first transmission, then the thing will be settled this time. If the first transmission is the tomb of the symbol below the first lesson, then things will get stuck. If the first transmission had a relation of the torture to the symbol below the first lesson, then things would be unfavorable and blocking. If the first transmission is empty and death, the favorable conditions will disappear. The thing about dissolution will be successful dissolution. The cause of matter is false. The news is false. The thing will not happen in this Xun. Wait until the next Xun. The symbols of the empty and death have changed. The empty and death is now filled. Things could happen at that time. If the first transmission is not based on the restriction relationship between the four lessons, but based on the heaven plate or the earth plate, etc., it means that the incident happened unexpectedly. For example, there is vacancy for a high-level position in the company, and everyone thinks that you or I will inherit the position, but the end result is that a person who surprises everyone succeeds. If the prediction is about marriage, it means that both men and women agree, but their parents disagree. The middle transmission represents the middle stage, the middle part, the middle person. If the state of the middle transmission is the empty and the death, we call this state the broken bridge, which represents the interruption of things, and things are likely to end in its middle stage. We can determine if things are going in our favor in intermediate stage based on the state of the middle transmission. The status of the middle transmission is the relationship between the middle transmission and the 4 lessons, the relationship between the middle transmission and its earth plate. What is the slideshow of the middle transmission? The relationship between the middle transmission and the first transmission, and the relationship between the middle transmission and the last transmission, and so on. The last transmission represents the final stage, the final part. If the status of the last transmission is empty and death, it means that things have no results. If the status of the last transmission is empty and death, this is not good for us in most cases. If the last transmission is the wife and wealth of the symbol below the first lesson, at the same time, the state of the last transmission is the empty and death, which means that wealth cannot be obtained, or only half it can be obtained. If the prediction is about someone's worry and dissolution, the state of the last transmission is the empty and death, which means dissolution. Whether the last transmission of the thing is favorable or unfavorable, we also need to observe the relationship between the last transmission and the 4 lessons, the relationship between the last transmission and its earth plate. What the slideshow of the last transmission is, the relationship between the last transmission and the first transmission, the relationship between the last transmission and the middle transmission, and so on. If in the 3 transmissions, the state of 2 transmissions is the empty and death, and the other transmission's slideshow is the hollow sky, there is a high probability that things will have no results or even start, but this is not absolute. If in the 3 transmissions, the state of 2 transmissions is the empty and death, the state of the other transmission is not the empty and death, and we only judge the development of things based on the transmission that is not empty and death. If the first transmission is the grove of the symbol under the first lesson, and the last transmission is the tomb of the symbol under the first lesson, it means that things are easy at first and difficult at the end. If the first transmission is based on the first or second lesson and the last transmission is based on the 3rd or 4th lesson, it means that the thing is about me asking for help from others, and the thing is from the outside to the inside. If the first transmission is based on the 3rd or 4th lesson, and the last transmission is based on the 1st or 2nd lesson, it means that the thing is about others asking for help from me, and the thing is from the inside to the outside. According to the combination of the 3 transmissions, the ancients conclude that some specific combinations represent specific meanings, and I will introduce them in detail in future videos. For example, the 3 transmissions of this combination, we call it the casting official seal. If the prediction is about whether someone can get promoted, and he gets this course, it means he can get that position. Subscribe. Be your own prophet.